Two 23-year-olds walk into the same company on the same Monday. Same title, same salary, same cheap apartment with the same IKEA furniture. 10 years later, one of them has a net worth just north of $200,000. The other one owes $15,000. Same paycheck, same pay period for an entire decade. The difference wasn't talent. It wasn't luck. It was about 10 quiet decisions, most of them made before either of them turned 27, that nobody sat them down and explained. This is that explanation. Your 20s feel like a starting line, and in a way, they are. But here's what most people don't realize until their 30s. The financial habits you build between 20 and 30 don't just set the tone, they set the math. Research from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York shows that most of your lifetime earnings growth happens in your 20s and 30s. It slows in your 40s. It often turns negative in your 50s. The decade where you feel the most broke is the decade where your decisions carry the most weight. And the mistakes aren't dramatic. Nobody blows up their finances with one catastrophic choice. It's a series of small, quiet ones. A form you didn't fill out. A number you didn't negotiate. A payment you made on autopilot without thinking about what it was costing you. Each one feels harmless in the moment. Together, they can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime. They tend to show up in a predictable order, starting with the one that hits first and hardest. No emergency fund. Before you roll your eyes, hear the numbers. According to Empower Research, the median American has $500 in emergency savings. For Gen Z, that number drops to $400. 29% of Americans say they can't cover an unexpected expense over $400. $400. That's a car repair. That's a single urgent care visit. That's the gap between "that was stressful" and "I'm putting it on a credit card at 24% interest." Think of an emergency fund less as savings and more as insurance. It's the barrier between you and high-interest debt. Without it, every unexpected expense becomes a financial wound that takes months or years to heal. With it, a flat tire is an inconvenience, not a crisis. The people who say, "I'll start saving once I make more money," are the same people who end up borrowing at the worst possible rates when life happens. And life always happens. Then there's the quietest expensive mistake on this list: ignoring your employer's retirement match. Here's how a match works. Your employer offers to put money into your retirement account, but only if you contribute first. A common setup is they'll match 50 cents for every dollar you put in, up to 6% of your salary. So, if you earn $50,000 a year and you contribute 6%, that's $3,000 from you. Your employer kicks in another $1,500. That's $1,500 of free money, every year, for doing nothing except filling out a form. And yet, 1 in 4 American workers don't contribute enough to get the full match, according to Financial Engine's research. Workers under 30 are twice as likely to miss it as workers over 60. The average employee who doesn't capture the full match leaves about $1,336 a year on the table. Compound that over 20 years, and that's roughly $43,000 that just vanished. Not because you spent it, because you never claimed it. Quick side note, this isn't financial advice. I'm not telling anyone what to do with their money, just walking through the math. Almost everyone in their 20s does this at some point, carries a credit card balance and pays the minimum. The average credit card APR, which stands for annual percentage rate, the yearly interest the card charges you, is now over 22%. For younger borrowers with thinner credit histories, it's often closer to 25 or 26. Gen Z's average credit card balance has been climbing every year since tracking began. Here's what minimum payments look like in practice. Say you've got a $5,000 balance at 22% APR, and your minimum payment is around 2% of the balance. You're looking at roughly 9.5 years to pay it off, and you'll pay over $6,500 in interest alone. You borrowed $5,000, you paid back nearly $12,000. That's the math of minimum payments. You're not paying off a debt, you're renting it. And that brings up something I'm genuinely curious about. What's one money decision from your 20s you wish you could redo? Those first 3 mistakes, no emergency fund, missed employer match, credit card debt, they don't feel related, but they're the same problem wearing three different outfits. Money is leaving your life through doors you didn't know were open. The emergency fund gap forces you into high-interest borrowing. The missed match is a paycheck you earned but never cashed. The credit card minimum is a monthly fee you pay for the privilege of staying in debt. Close those three doors and you've changed the entire trajectory. Leave them open and every dollar you earn in your 20s is leaking out before it ever has a chance to work for you. Now we get to the one you won't notice until it's already done its damage. Lifestyle creep. Lifestyle creep, sometimes called lifestyle inflation, is when your spending rises at the same rate as your income. You get a raise, you upgrade the apartment. You land a bonus, you start eating out 4 nights a week. Each individual upgrade feels earned. You worked hard, you deserve it, and on its own, any single upgrade is fine. The problem is, they stack up, and they reclassify themselves in your brain. What started as a treat becomes a baseline. What was a luxury becomes a necessity. The nicer apartment isn't a choice anymore, it's just where you live. A 2025 Goldman Sachs report found that 40% of households earning $500,000 a year or more still feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck. That's $500,000 a year, and they feel broke. Bureau of Labor Statistics data shows the same pattern at every income level. Higher income households don't save proportionally more than lower income ones. They just spend more across every category. This has nothing to do with deprivation. It's about sequence. When your income goes up, the first increase should go to your savings rate, then to your lifestyle, not the other way around. Because if your spending rises at exactly the same speed as your income, you'll feel like you're standing still no matter how fast you're running. Your 20s self won't want to hear this one. Overpaying for a car. The average new car payment hit $767 a month in the fourth quarter of 2025, according to Experian data. The average loan amount for a new car, $42,582. Average loan term, about 69 months. That's nearly 6 years of payments on something that's losing value the entire time you're paying for it. Kelley Blue Book data shows the average new car loses about 20% of its value in the first year alone. After 5 years, it's lost close to 60%. So you bought something for $40,000 and 5 years later, it's worth about $16,000 and you might still owe money on it. That gap, when you owe more than the car is worth, is called being underwater. And almost 19% of new car loans now have monthly payments over $1,000. The trap has nothing to do with the car. It's how people shop. They walk into a dealership and negotiate a monthly payment, not a total price. A dealer can make any car affordable by stretching the loan to 72 or 84 months. The monthly number looks manageable, but you're paying interest on a depreciating asset for the better part of a decade. Co-signing a loan. This one usually comes wrapped in love or loyalty. A parent asks you to co-sign their car loan. A friend needs help qualifying for an apartment. A sibling's credit isn't good enough on their own. When you co-sign, you're not vouching for someone. You're legally promising to pay their debt if they don't. The loan shows up on your credit report. It counts against your debt-to-income ratio, which is the percentage of your monthly income that goes toward debt payments, and lenders use it to decide whether you qualify for your own mortgage, car loan, or credit card. According to Bankrate, 21% of adults have co-signed for someone. Of those, 18% lost money and 20% saw damage to their credit score. FTC-cited data shows that for co-signed loans that go into default, 3 out of 4 co-signers end up being asked to repay. You took on 100% of the risk for 0% of the benefit, and if the relationship goes sideways, you're stuck with both the debt and the damage. And then there's waiting to invest. This one doesn't feel like a mistake at the time. You're 24. Retirement is 40 years away. You've got student loans. You've got rent. Investing feels like something for later, when you've got your life together. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis published an example that should change how you think about this forever. A 25-year-old invests $5,000 a year for just 10 years, then stops completely, never puts in another dollar. At an 8% average annual return, by age 65, they'll have roughly $787,000. A 35-year-old starts investing $5,000 a year and keeps going for 30 straight years, 3 times the total investment. By 65, they'll have roughly $612,000. The person who started earlier and invested less ended up with $175,000 more. That's compounding, where you earn returns on your returns, and the only ingredient you can't manufacture is time. The first half of this list was money leaking out. The second half is money that never had the chance to exist. $767 a month in car payments that could have gone into an index fund. A co-signed loan that wrecked your borrowing power right when you needed a mortgage. 10 years of potential compounding that evaporated because investing felt like something you'd get to eventually. Every dollar in your 20s has a future attached to it. The question is whether you're spending that future or building it. There are 2 more patterns that don't show up as single expenses, but reshape every financial decision you make for years. The first is ignoring your credit score. Your credit score is a 3-digit number, ranging from 300 to 850, that tells lenders how risky you are. It affects the interest rate on your car loan, your mortgage, your credit cards. It affects whether you get approved for that apartment. In some states, employers check it during hiring. The average credit score for Gen Z is 678, according to Experian data. The national average across all ages is 715. That 37-point gap isn't just a number. It translates directly into money. A lower score means higher interest rates on everything you borrow for the next decade. On a 30-year mortgage, the difference between a 720 and a 660 credit score can mean tens of thousands of dollars in additional interest over the life of the loan. Your score is built on 5 factors. Payment history, which is whether you pay on time, makes up 35%. Amounts owed, how much of your available credit you're using, is 30%. Length of credit history is 15%. Credit mix is 10%. New credit inquiries, the last 10%. The 2 biggest factors, payment history and amounts owed, are things you can control right now. Pay on time. Keep your credit card balance below 30% of your limit. That's 65% of your score, determined by 2 habits. And the longer you maintain those habits, the stronger the history becomes. Ignoring your score in your 20s means spending your 30s paying a premium on everything. The second pattern is not negotiating your salary. This is the most expensive silent mistake on the entire list. A Pew Research Center survey found that 55% of workers didn't try to negotiate their starting salary. A ZipRecruiter survey went further. 84% of Gen Z workers between 18 and 24 accepted the first salary they were offered. 84%. And a Fidelity study found that 85% of people who did negotiate got at least some of what they asked for. Linda Babcock, an economics professor at Carnegie Mellon University, estimated that not negotiating your first salary can cost between $1 million and $1.5 million in lost lifetime earnings. That sounds impossible until you see the math. Start a job at $50,000 instead of $55,000. Every percentage-based raise builds on that lower base. Every future employer who asks about your salary history anchors to that lower number. Your retirement contributions, if they're based on a percentage of salary, are permanently smaller. One conversation you didn't have at 23 echoes through every paycheck for 40 years. And the last one ties all of this together in the worst possible way: skipping health insurance. When you're 24 and healthy, insurance feels like paying for something you'll never use. So you skip it, or you pick the cheapest plan with a sky-high deductible. According to research from the Commonwealth Fund, more than a third of young adults between 19 and 29 have faced medical bill problems or are currently paying off medical debt. 66% of all bankruptcies in the United States have a medical component, according to a study published in the American Journal of Public Health. One ER visit, one broken bone, one emergency appendectomy, and everything else on this list becomes irrelevant. Your emergency fund's gone. Your credit score tanks. Your savings timeline resets to 0. Health insurance in your 20s isn't a health decision. It's the foundation that keeps every other financial decision from collapsing. Here's what makes your 20s uniquely dangerous for all of this. The mistakes are invisible, yes, but your brain is also wired to make them. Behavioral economists call it hyperbolic discounting. Humans consistently overvalue immediate rewards and undervalue future consequences. At 23, your future self is a stranger. The retirement account doesn't feel real. The credit score feels like somebody else's problem. The salary you accepted feels generous because you're comparing it to what you made in college, not what you'll need at 35. Every mistake on this list exploits the same gap, the distance between what feels true today and what turns out to be true a decade from now. The missed employer match is invisible. The credit card minimum fits in the budget. The new car smells amazing. The salary offer felt generous because you were just happy to get the job. Lifestyle creep happens one upgraded subscription at a time. Nobody wakes up and decides to lose $175,000 in compounding. They just decide to start investing next year, and then the year after that, and then the year after that. The real danger of your 20s isn't making one catastrophic mistake. It's making 10 small ones and not feeling any of them until it's too late to undo the math. Every mistake on this list shares the same structure, a short-term comfort that trades away a long-term advantage. And the reason they work so well is that your 20s are the one decade where you can absorb the hit. You've got time. You'll earn more later. You'll figure it out. But time is the thing being traded. And once it's gone, the only way to catch up is to pay more, save harder, and work longer than the person who started earlier with less. The mental model that ties this together has nothing to do with budgets. It's a multiplier. Every dollar you save or invest in your 20s has roughly 4 times the impact of the same dollar saved at 45. Compounding and time do that work for you. That's arithmetic, not advice. The pattern that shows up across every person who comes out of their 20s in strong financial shape follows a predictable sequence. They built a small emergency buffer first, even $1,000, because it changed their relationship with unexpected expenses. They captured their employer match. They cleared high-interest debt before it compounded against them. And they started putting even small amounts into the market early because the clock was the asset they couldn't replace. Each step in that sequence protects the next one. The emergency fund keeps you out of credit card debt. The employer match puts compounding to work immediately. Clearing high-interest debt stops the bleeding. And investing early gives the math the one thing it needs: time. Those two 23-year-olds from the beginning, they didn't make different amounts of money. They made different decisions about the money they had. One of them filled out the retirement form during onboarding. The other one skipped it. One of them drove a 7-year-old Honda. The other one financed a new SUV at 72 months. One of them asked for $5,000 more at the offer stage. The other one said, "Sounds great," and signed. 10 decisions, 10 years, 2 completely different financial lives. And the thing about your 20s is that while you're in them, you still get to choose which one you're building. If this helps something click, subscribe. And drop a comment. What's one money decision from your 20s you wish you could redo?